Good late Tuesday, early Wednesday meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at that Doppler radar across the region. Really not many showers around, a little bit in the coastal waters there, but not too big of a deal. I know those winds, they're not too big of a deal compared to what they were here in some of our spots, but we still have a coastal flood advisory that we're taking note of here towards some of the eastern zones. So that's something to kind of be mindful of as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here in the overall vicinity. So we're monitoring all that here, but not too big of a deal overall. So that is some good news here, obviously, as we're giving you guys the very latest information. Just, always important to keep our eyes on everything around. You do see here the temperatures. 59 to Cross City. If you're watching live with me, 59 around Taylor County and Perry, 60 in Tallahassee. So it's pretty nice. It's about, as you're looking at things here, about what you'd expect for this time of year. So that's something that we're dealing with here in terms of not as much humidity around, and that is kind of a storyline here that we are tracking. We're just trying to keep tabs on everything here with all of that. So let's go ahead and kind of broaden the view here. You'll be able to see that we do have a small tornado risk in toward parts of New Mexico and Colorado on that Wednesday. Not too big of a deal, but we'll keep our eyes on that. Obviously, there was a tornado risk also in North California as we've been watching things. Watching a little bit of Fetch Marine warning action there off the LA coast there right now. We had some severe thunderstorm action in that vicinity, severe thunderstorm watch even, which is very rare. Hadn't happened in over 15 years toward parts of Southern California, the LA area on that Tuesday. But as we're kind of looking at things and tracking things here some more, let me go ahead and give you a look here at some of the graphics that I have in here in order to show, and you'll be able to see here. We keep showing this one, but it's a good reminder, that we do, still do have that potential. Kate, despite these other storms they would have hit and did hit earlier in the calendar year, Kate was a later November storm. So my point is, we still got to remain vigilant here in case we do have some tropical activity. And that was 40 years ago, the anniversary coming up next month. So just always stay alert to the tropics. As we go ahead and look at that tropical climatology, you see that peak of hurricane season has passed, but we still got to be on guard here. There's still that chance in the tropics, even as we're looking here late October and into November. So just remain alert here, just in case. As you do see, we have Lorenzo out there. Not worried about that one. Our next name, if we get another storm, which we're expecting, probably would, before the end of the season, could be even quicker than that. Could be pretty soon even. That'd be called Melissa here. You have to watch, some accent toward the Caribbean as we look ahead, as we get a little bit further out in the timeline, but nothing definitive at this point. But just remain alert. Keep that hurricane kit up to date. Don't, don't lay your guard down here. Keep those supplies kind of on hand here as we continue to watch things, because it's been so quiet this season toward our area and toward much of the U.S. really. We don't want to let our guard down and all of a sudden, we have a little time to prepare. So need to be on guard with all that. We do have a severe risk here as we look toward the center of the country as we get towards Saturday. A formal risk. We haven't had one of these in a while. This goes all the way from northeast Texas, northern Louisiana, all the way into Missouri and Illinois, includes, all of Arkansas there. A risk of some severe weather on that Saturday. So just remain on guard. Could have some isolated tornadoes, damaging winds above be a little bit more predominant threat, but tornado threat definitely can't be ruled out even in the western Tennessee, western Kentucky, as we're looking at things here. So just be mindful. Could have some severe weather on that Saturday across parts of the center of the country, and some of that risk, albeit lower, could translate closer toward our area on that Sunday. A lot of that risk may go a little bit further north, but and it wouldn't be as high as the Saturday risk probably, but gotta just remain on guard here as we're looking at things. You see that rainfall forecast. I do think we'll have a little bit of a chance of some action with the rain later Sunday and early Monday further east. I know this was the official forecast a little while ago from the Weather Prediction Center. It said more of that toward Tallahassee, which would be the case, but could still have a little bit of precip even off towards Dark, Gainesville, Jacksonville. You get the idea. Now you see Missouri there, parts of Missouri, parts of Illinois, parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi Arkansas, Louisiana, even in Alabama there a bit. A bit of rain, as we're looking at that system that I was alluding to there. That Saturday storm maker. Definitely will be paying attention to all that. You have the interactive radar available, clutter.com/radar as well. Now, locally, we do have that fog threat as we get toward that Wednesday morning. We had that around on that Tuesday morning. Just remember that hazardous driving conditions can occur due to low visibility. Slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. Make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible. Other vehicles by using your low beam headlights and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. Always very important to keep in mind. As we look here at the college football playoff, though, my rankings for the week ahead here per se, as we're going into the next week there in college football. I know SU have homecoming this weekend. Things aren't doing too good in terms of that football program right now. As we're looking toward Gainesville, Billy Napier's squad, they're going to have Mississippi State in there for homecoming. It's a game that's not an easy one for them, and then I know FSU, and that football team has just, lost 3 in a row now. Going to be another tough game going out to Palo Alto against Stanford there as we're looking. And there's a bye week, and I know you have games, ahead later on. FSU's homecoming will be in there, but then you have that Clemson, you have at Florida, you have at NC State. It's just not looking good. Florida State's going to be lucky to get to a bowl game even. Same for Florida, probably right on the edge, one way or the other. Maybe everyone not either one get in a bowl game there as we're looking at things at this point. But you see here, Miami, number 3, I dropped them some because, they didn't play, sure, but, Indiana really impressive going out to Eugene, Oregon, and getting a win like they did. What a great job by Chris Cignetti's squad. Ohio State, number 1, Julian Sayin doing a great job. Texas Tech there. I know they're, really doing well. They're in the Big 12. Big win, last weekend. Texas A&M there, SEC champion. As we're looking and as we're tracking things right now based on my projections. But Alabama, what a great win they had at Missouri. That loss against FSU negated at this point because it seems to have just been a fluke there. Unfortunately for my nose, Georgia Tech there. Your second best ACC team. I have them at number 7 right now. They haven't lost, but you got to factor in. I'm kind of ranking some of these based on more deserving than projecting in some ways. So that's why Georgia Tech's up there pretty high. Oregon, number 8, Ole Miss. They really struggled against Washington State. They're undefeated. A lot of folks have them way higher. I barely have them in here. BYU's undefeated. They're gonna have a tough game against Utah this weekend. Notre Dame, I know they have 2 losses, but they've been really impressive otherwise. And those 2 losses were against my number 3 team and my number 5 team when possessing games. That kind of tells the story. USF, their 1 loss was a big one to Miami, but they're still looking to be the best right now out of the, non-power leagues. But we'll see, Memphis and Navy maybe competing for that. And the USF went to North Texas there. And that area there, and the Denton area, and they got a huge win against the Mean Green there back Friday night. What a win for them. Georgia's my first team out. They've really had some interesting calls against Auburn, so they don't deserve to be in the playoff according to my projections. They already had lost Alabama at home as well. Oklahoma there, they lost now to Texas, and they really, struggled. They barely scored in that game against the Texas team who lost to Florida. Missouri, I know they, lost that game to Alabama, but they did really well. They tried really hard, and they came up just a little short there. Controversial call, I believe in that one as well. So they're just out. They only lost to Alabama so far. Utah lost to Texas Tech. Again, a big game against BYU. Memphis hadn't lost, though they had barely beat Arkansas, and Arkansas's not that good probably. But right now, that keeps them in there, in consideration. It's going to just depend on who wins that conference in the American, probably, unless UNLV somehow runs the table in the Mountain West and, ends up being more impressive than the American Conference champ. And then UVA there, the team that beat FSU earlier on to kind of start that 3-game losing streak for the Noles. A quarterback there doing a great job, and they have a pretty interesting game considering what happened with Ole Miss. We'll have to see how UVA plays against Washington State at home on Saturday on the CW, I believe it is. LSU there, I'm just not impressed by them, but Brian Kelly's the coach. We'll see what happens in the weeks ahead. The SEC, a lot of these teams, really the only two teams that have been impressive in the SEC, Texas A&M and Alabama. Of course, Alabama lost to FSU, but they've been real impressive otherwise. Ole Miss really struggling, like I alluded to against Washington State. Then you have LSU there, again alluding to Brian Kelly, and then Tennessee, they lost to Georgia. I know that was a game that went to overtime, so really one of those. They could have went either way, but Tennessee barely beat Arkansas, who had an interim coach, and it was Bobby Petrino, who has experience there, but still, Tennessee also has struggled against teams like Mississippi State. You have University of Washington there. I know there's so many teams on this, but their one loss was against Ohio State, the number one team that I have in consideration. Navy hadn't lost yet, neither has UNLV. Pretty weak schedules, but you got to at least put them on the board here. So that's the storyline there. Now, weather for like homecoming parades on Friday for Bradford and for UF, looking really good in terms of that weather. So that's the good news. Maybe a little warm, but it's going to be a drier heat. It's not as humid. This is pretty nice here, really. Just, obviously, as you're headed out and about on the road, it's going to be crowded. Just stay safe out there. And, you have the homecoming games, Friday night for Bradford, Saturday for the University of Florida. Just, again, stay safe there. Weather not looking to be too big of an issue. I mean, still wear that sunscreen because there'll be that sun around. It can kind of sneak up on you when it's not quite as hot, maybe, but as you're looking, I'm talking more about the UF game. Bradford's, of course, at night, but it still goes for the parade on Friday there as you're looking at things and as you're tracking things. So just you got to be kind of careful there in that regard. UF's game is at 4:15 on Saturday against Mississippi State as the Bulldogs come into town. Now on Sunday, a few strong storms could be around here, so just remain alert for rapidly changing weather conditions, obviously. Not a huge threat. Higher with a rain chance than most. I know it's going to kind of start to weaken as it gets further east, probably, unless we get some more destabilization in things here as we look ahead toward the east. But, as we look further off toward the west there, Tallahassee area, that's where more precip will probably be falling in general with that. It'll be earlier on. I know Jags in London there, so even if it's, it's a Jags home game on Sunday, but they're not at home. They're going to be in London. So even if the weather were moving a little quicker, it's not going to, if it was a 1 o'clock kickoff, then even then, we might be watching for the weather, but at the end of that, maybe, but it's not a home game, even though it theoretically is, it's in London. So as you look there toward Monday, 30% chance of rain. I know it counts as a home game is what I mean, but it's not actually one. And the Jags really struggled against the Seattle Seahawks there, and we'll have to see if they can turn the page there to the LA Rams before their bye week. I know Bradford and UF there. I believe it's Bradford, UF, FSU, and the Jags are all off next week, which is very interesting. I don't know if we've had that combination very much before, but that's looking to be the storyline there, because UF's off before the Georgia game. Jags are off after London. FSU's off after going out to the West Coast to Palo Alto. Bradford's off last week of the year. Or, wait a minute, let me double check that. Okay, I think Bradford might actually be playing next week. Okay, yeah, I'm getting my weeks mixed up just a little bit. Okay, Bradford is playing next week there. Okay, they're playing Santa Fe next week. And then they're off for Halloween night. So, okay, that's how that works. So, Bradford is playing next week, but FSU, UF, and the Jags are off next weekend, which is a very unusual combination. So, but Bradford is playing Santa Fe as we're looking at things there. Again, this week's homecoming for Bradford. We assume next Friday night will be senior night there. Then before they had the bye on Halloween before the playoffs that they would, more than likely, I'm sure, be in with this one loss this season. As we're looking and tracking things here. So again, that's kind of the storyline with all that. As we're kind of getting everything together here. Again, that's kind of everything you need to know, I think, there. Summarizing it here on this Tuesday night. Again, we'll be continuing to watch things and we'll continue to track things here in toward the Weather Center. And we'll be back late Thursday with another update. So just make sure you tune in then. For now, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Things looking pretty calm. We have the coastal footage advisory. I know you have the different platforms are on. Facebook, Twitter, /X, YouTube, and Twitch. And the website has the interactive radar. But again, here's one more look at that 7 days. We wrap it up. The temperatures for the highs a little above average, but the lows are about what you'd expect here. A little bit, by next Tuesday, a little bit below that even. It's a little bit cooler, drier, trying to get in after we get that storm system on Sunday. So that's something to kind of look forward to some degree. Again, those lows, they're about what you expect. It's kind of indicates some dry air on a lot of these days. On Sunday, a little bit more moisture, but then we start to kind of dry back out again as we look ahead in the timeline there. Maybe a little early morning from Monday, lingering moisture in the eastern zones. We'll watch things for any strong storms on Sunday, but otherwise not too concerned about all that. Let me see if there's any questions or comments before we wrap it on up. But I think that pretty much does it here for this Tuesday night from the Weather Center. As we're kind of watching, as we're tracking, I know we're watching Saturday toward the center of the country here. As we look and as we track things, I'll be watching that forecast there, toward Missouri and Arkansas and Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, and the like. Maybe some severe weather organized potential there. Maybe Memphis in there. We'll just be paying attention for all that, as that's something that could become a bigger national story. Not turning the logo red for that right now. We'll watch it, see if that's needed at some point. Not sure that it would be, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. So we'll watch that for you guys. But locally is not red logo type situation. I mean, if we already had a red for the threat for the Northwest, we might just keep it red. But we'll watch, because we haven't had much of that severe weather acts in here. Now we're getting into fall. Of course, we do gotta watch the tropics to see if we get anything to develop in terms of maybe Melissa eventually. Maybe if it's an area that moves into the Caribbean, there we'll have to be paying attention to that. But we'll be monitoring it all here for you and giving you the latest updates as necessary. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe.